So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today in MYFest2024. This is the second session in June, and this is titled Calling Dr. Frankenstein, Making Custom GPTs. Dr. Mark Merino is facilitating, and I'm gonna hand him the floor in a second. But on the screen, you can see the community agreements that we co-created together, and this was created because we designed MyFest with the ethos of intentionally equitable hospitality. If you don't know what that is, it's a praxis that entails welcoming everybody into the space, regardless of any background or disability or any other aspect. So it assumes that everybody is welcomed and everybody is uh, uh, able to share whatever they've got when it comes to ideas. Feel free also to visit this community agreements at any time and contribute to it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand to Mark and then let him introduce himself more thoroughly if he wishes. And over to you, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you, Yasser, and thank you everyone for joining. Thanks also to Mia and Maha for putting this together, and for Irene and the other facilitators. This is I Love MyFest, and this is my second session this summer, and we're gonna try to build on some things we did yesterday in the session, looking at kind of some of the challenges when you're creating bots, some of the ways it's difficult to constrain the output of LLMs. And now today's session, this will really be like a hands-on workshop. So we'll actually build some bots. Now, true to form, ChatGPT is not operating the way it was today, on my machine at least. Why that is, who knows? Do they have to explain it to us? Nope. They're a for-profit company. They have, a for-profit nonprofit, so they have no obligation to do anything. So, but the good news is that the other site that we are going to use is working. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. Or we'll cross it. As my writing partner Rob Wittig likes to say, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. So let's take a look. Let's go to some slides we got. So here's our session, Calling Dr. Frankenstein, Making Custom GPT Bots. And before we get started, can people put up a hand, virtual or otherwise, if you've ever made a custom GPT or you've ever made a Poe bot? Raise your hand virtually or otherwise. Okay, so Min has, Yasser has, or no, Min has. Twitter bots back in the day, says Mia. Great. Yeah, I guess we could say, let's open it up to, bots of any kind too, if you've made any of those. Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well, no bot making experience necessary. And Bonnie, you said you experiment with some others. That's good. Excited to learn. Great. All right. All right. Well, that gives me a good sense of where we are. So again, so this will be kind of like soup to nuts. We'll start from scratch with our the bot making. And just to give a little background about me, my name is Mark Merino. I teach writing at the University of Southern California, where I run the Humanities and Critical Code Studies Lab, where we look at technology and culture primarily through the lens of computer source code. And one of the things we look at also is AI as part of that, and we try to figure out ways we can study AI, which can be difficult because you don't have access to the code of AI all the time. Or to some extent, there's some amount of code that you don't have access to really ever, because it's generated by the system on the fly, and it's very difficult to get a snapshot of that. So we've been developing ways to critically study artificial intelligence from a, maybe informed philosophical, or, in the humanities, we just call it a critical perspective, but that entails all of the various approaches people have come up with, all of the various critical methods, from post-structuralist methods, Marxist, feminist, queer, etc., race theories, post-colonial, and we combine them and we try to see how those can apply. Again, I'm happy to talk about that on some other day. Oh, by the way, I'll be doing another session on July 3rd. That'll be my last session for MYFest, although not the last one I'll participate in. That's playful prompting that'll pick up some of our playful games we played both yesterday to some extent and last year when I did the series right when ChatGPT was new and fresh and exciting and dangerous. I mean, it's now, I think it's probably more dangerous now, but we'll try to have a playful approach to seeing what we can do with these tools. And I'd be remiss not to do a little plug for the Electronic Literature Organization. I'm their communications director, and this is a community. It's a really wonderful international group of humanities scholars, artists, technologists, folks of all stripes who are interested in the artful use of technology, again, with a bit of a literary spin, however you interpret literary. It doesn't even have to involve words at this point, but anyway, it's a wonderful community that a number of you here present have had participated in the past, and I would love to have more of you guys involved with it and just meet some of the great artists and scholars working in that area. And you are probably artists and scholars working in that area, so why not meet some peers? If you want to follow more of what I'm up to, we got a lot of my stuff I just post straight to Medium these days. So my account's just Mark C. Merino on the medium.com platform. And I publish my things free and open source on that platform. You don't need a subscription or anything like that. You might, I don't know if it forces you to have an account to open them. I hope not. I've got some articles about different ways you can use ChatGPT. And then recently I started a Substack. I don't know why, not enough platforms, which again, is also free. You're welcome to subscribe to that, where I'm posting some other ideas as I have them about what I call art and playful intelligence, sort of like, again, sort of this creative approach to artificial intelligence. A playful approach, which isn't uncritical, but it does mean rather than despairing, I don't know, maybe there's a certain amount of despair we should be doing. There's a certain amount of fear. I just saw a wonderful video essay on AGI where this is an almost sentient AI or sort of total AI that they just moved up 50 years earlier in when it's going to be ready based on the speed at which we are. I mean, again, it used to be one of these things of like science fantasy, like as far out as you could imagine, and keeps moving closer. So I'm glad there are good people who are working on the ethics of these issues and some cautions. But again, I still think I learn a lot by playing. So that's my approach. And I know that I share that with a lot of you here, Mia and others. Last year I did generate this book, Hallucinate This, which you're welcome to check out. It's an authorized autobiography of ChatGPT, and in that book, I pretend that ChatGPT is not only a person but my co-author, and then we tell together. I prompt and it generates its life story in really weird and wacky ways. Here's this quote from strangely capitalized quote from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. No one chooses evil because it is evil. One only mistakes it for happiness the good one seeks. I guess that's our little bit of caution going into this particular project. And then I'd be remiss not to share I'd probably be remiss about a lot of things in this conversation. That's my second remiss today. I do want to remind us of my favorite Dr. Frankenstein, which is Gene Wilder in the Mel Brooks movie, Young Frankenstein. I just feel like I like that picture. So the bot making impulse has a long history. Maybe it's as old as the dream of robots, which is kind of curious because then that puts us in the realm. If you go back to the original play that introduced the concept of robots, they were, it was more like automated workers. It's, sort of a critique on labor. I tend to take it back to this guy, Joseph Weizenbaum, who in 1964 through 1966, he was at MIT and he developed the system a lot of you know about called ELIZA. And ELIZA is a conversation system written in a very particular language, written in the language MAD, and a particular script on top of that called SLIP that Joseph Weizenbaum developed. So MAD SLIP is what ELIZA is written in. And if you go to this website, let's see if we can, we'll share something else for a second. Let's see, where do we want to go? Basic. If you go to the website elizagen.org, you can see a group of us we're researching the origins of ELIZA, everything we can come to find about it. And Weizenbaum is really this fascinating person who develops this, I mean, in some ways, like this extremely clever little, well, the program itself is really fascinating. But on top of it, he writes this script called Doctor. And when you interact with Doctor, that's what a lot of people think ELIZA is. They just refer to ELIZA and Doctor as the same. But Doctor was a script running on the ELIZA system that allowed you to have conversations with a Rogerian psychotherapist, maybe, or a text demonstration of a Rogerian psychotherapist. So I can show you a little bit of how this works if you want. So how do you do? Please tell me your problem. I have to give a workshop on bot making, and I'm nervous. You say you have to give a workshop on bot making and you're nervous. I sure did. I am nervous. Can you elaborate on that? Well, I love MYFest, and I'd hate to let all these fine people down. You say you love MYFest, and I'd hate to let all these fine people down for some special reason? Yes, because they are important to me. You seem quite positive. That's good. Anyway, you can see sort of the limits of this, but actually what I really want to offer is that if you go to the site, like this is probably the most accurate recreation of ELIZA that we've had. We've recreated both the ELIZA system, which we found the code to, and we've this is the Doctor script that they used. So just want to stay on this for just 1 second on the topic of bots, because I think it's important, is that Weizenbaum, so he creates this thing and a lot of people use it. And anecdotally, we have these accounts of people going and really pouring their hearts out to this doctor. Did they think it was a person? I don't know. Do you think ChatGPT is a person? Even though you know it's not a person, do you ever like forget that it's not a person? Because I'm pretty sure the entire interface is designed to make you forget that it's a person. Sorry, they make you forget that it's not a person. I mean, let's just to take a look for just a second, just to see if it's back up and running at its normal speed. Again, I was getting a strange interface this morning, so I'm not going to dwell on it too long. Yeah, it looks like the same kind of blank. It's kind of has me logged out for some reason. But I do want to just make a small little note, which is, that chat aspect of ChatGPT is so incredibly important. And, again, that's where they've really placed a lot of their energies, because the OpenAI did have GPT-3 set up for over a year as a little sandbox where you could just go and generate text. But in that moment, and whatever it was, late November, early December 2022, when they put that chat interface on it, suddenly it got this uptick in use that really, essentially broke the internet, right? I mean, that was the interface that sort of entranced people. It's such a natural and naturalizing interface, conversation, right? So going back to Weizenbaum, he goes to Stanford for a couple of years after this to study humanities. People like Hannah Arendt and people like that. And he comes back and people are all excited about turning Eliza into this profitable platform, for psychology, like to do psychology, to turn doctor into like a profitable psychology device. And the military wants it for other reasons and things like this. And Weizenbaum comes back. And remember, this is like, late 60s, very late 60s, early 70s in the United States. And Weizenbaum is tuned into all of the protests against Vietnam and the mechanization of war and things like this. And he is a Holocaust survivor. And so he's filled with horror. And he turns against the whole artificial intelligence community. So anyway, it's just something to think about is the dangers involved with like mistaking these bots for people, and so in selling our humanity so cheaply as to give them a kind of sentience that they don't have. Also, but the biggest problem with people giving sentience to these sorts of programs is that they forget how they work, right? So let's stay in the realm of stochastic parrots, not humans. Just remind ourselves of what's happening here, because everything about your experience of ChatGPTs as they get better and better, now that they've added voice, for example, are meant to make you forget what they are. I mean, and to use them more, obviously, but again, it's liable to make you use them incorrectly. So I have a system for prompting that I kind of developed last year that's held up pretty well. And so I'm going to go through this like really quickly because it'll help us make better bots. So, and just so you guys know, this session is going to be like a little bit more of this business where blah, 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 like I'm giving you kind of background and context, and then we're going to jump in and make some bots. So get ready to get your hands dirty in some good old fashioned bot making. So I was in need for a mnemonic to think about how to prompt ChatGPT effectively, or any of these LLMs effectively. And I found that this mnemonic helped out. Now, and I came up with this with a class that I was teaching last summer. The students helped me come up with this. And then ChatGPT actually helped come up with the word prompts. Like I was like, hey, can you, here's our words. Can you, we need it to be an acronym. And it said, how about prompts? Let's go. Okay, that's pretty good collaboration there. So anyway, breaking this down. P, personality. So it helps to identify, language is not generic. Well, language can be generic, but produced language, tied to identities, tends to be the most interesting, although sometimes we strip personality out, like maybe when we're trying to write scientifically, or we're trying to write something like a Wikipedia article. But even then, we probably could shorthand a lot of characteristics of voice by just assigning a type of person that this would be making this writing. Whatever they're, are they scientifically minded? Are they, but also, are they sarcastic, or are they serious, or are they passionate, whatever, like all those things are helpful. And those of us who have taught writing for a long while, we know this is like key, really important to helping unlock students' voices, is helping them understand that that voice is about a subjectivity in a certain position in a certain time that has a certain relationship to the world, and more importantly, has these extra characteristics of emotions and things like that, right? Tones, right? So if you can help access that, you'll really get some good things. You'll get richer writing that doesn't feel ChatGPT generic, which my students are able to imitate, by the way, in a little game we play in class. We talk about later. Rubric. So we only hear rubric used ever, I think, either if we study manuscripts that literally have rubrics, they have the red writing on top of them, or if you're a teacher. So what is a rubric other than a set of expectations of what would be good for this particular assignment, or what's being expected in the assignment, and maybe what you don't want in the assignment. Sometimes a rubric will cover that as well, right? Although usually most rubrics I look at that have to do with writing just play the game with adjectives, like excellent, sufficient, more than sufficient explanation, and then the failing grade is completely devoid of explanation, right? But in any case, knowing what you're looking for is extremely important. Objective, what's your goal? Any communication moment needs a goal. We need some models. That's extremely important. Remember, the ChatGPT is an LLM. I'm not doing good sign language, but the M part of LLM is model. They're large language models, but that doesn't mean that they've been trained on the kind of writing that you want. And that'll prove useful, important for us to think about in just a little bit when we go to make our bots. Or more importantly, their training data might include the stuff you want written, but it might be so diluted by all the other junk that this thing has been trained on, that it in some ways it has difficulty accessing that or prioritizing that statistically. Remember, that's what this machine's doing. It's saying, what word comes next? What word comes next? Given contextual clues and the thing I'm being asked to produce. So parameters, that's my way of saying, if you don't want ChatGPT to make stuff up, then tell it the details you don't want to make up. Now, recently, ChatGPT-4, I've noticed, is tied to the internet. It will look things up on occasion, and you see when it's looking things up. Google Bard, and I assume now Gemini, are tied to the internet. Bard would show you the citations of what it looked up. So this hallucination conversation might be short-lived, but nonetheless, because this thing is not designed to think, it's designed to generate symbols, generate text in various languages. It doesn't have a way of keeping track of what we would call knowledge. So if there are details, like you're saying, oh, I need to write ChatGPT, I want you to write my letter of complaint to my phone company because they charged me too much. Okay, well, all those details you want to quote, like you want in that letter, you got to specify it, obviously. And task, what do you need the AI to produce? Now, a lot of people begin with the task. And this is just my way of saying, don't forget there's all these other parts of the communication. But obviously we have a task. That's why we came to ChatGPT in the first place, or any LLM, or why we're making a bot. And lastly, setting or context. Remember, these bots are operating tabula rasa in a universe that's just being created the moment you start a session. Now, that's not entirely true because they have access to all this language that makes it seem like they have knowledge, but every communication exchange has some sort of context or setting. So you need to give those to the bot. I'm writing a letter to the phone company. The phone company has overcharged me, and then whatever else they need to know. Or I need a little description of these items that are going in a silent auction for my child's fundraiser. And again, and then you would go from there. Well, a lot of people like to shorthand the prompting of ChatGPT and others. You are a blank. Okay. So and we're sort of instructed, like we're advised to start ChatGPT in the second person for whatever reason. It seems like it responds to that. Again, have I tested this out? Whenever I say it seems to, like, we're talking about my limited experience with these tools. I'm generally happy with what I get out of them. So, but again, I'm not a social scientist, nor am I an empirical scientist. I'm not going out there and testing these things. And when you talk to the computer scientists about it, they tend to say some very unsatisfying things that tend to make programming sound more mysterious. And these it's unexplainable. I mean, again, I understand what they mean by the explainability problem, but it's sometimes they'll use words like it's magical. It's just mystery. It's a mystery. It's a mystery how this technology works. Well, maybe you're the computer scientist. Figure it out. Anyway. So let's continue on. So I did make some bots. I talked about these yesterday. I have two bots that are out there on Poe. You can check out. Maybe we'll check out as part of this. One's called Coach Tutor. One's called Reviewer Number 2. They both in the past were tied to ChatGPT 3.5. They might still be, and they're on the Poe system, and they are set up to give feedback on papers. I mentioned that my colleague Patty Taylor has put them to the test to see if they can give better feedback than she does on first-year writing students' papers, and she has found that they are deficient on numerous levels. But it's interesting. They definitely can prioritize certain comments over others. Like if I give it a rubric and say, hey, really look at this aspect of the writing over this aspect of the writing, their output does reflect that. I think at this point, it's helpful for me to think of them as more like fortune telling, like not in the, I don't know if there's true fortune telling, but in the sort of artificial, like a mechanical fortune teller that like outputs a card with your fortune on it at a boardwalk. You put like a little coin in, and it, I don't know if you've ever seen one of these in the movies or whatever, the Great Zoltan. But in any case, in other words, the output they give you may or may not apply to your paper. It certainly is the kind of advice that people give about papers. And in your mind, you kind of do a lot of, I think people are capable of doing this kind of repair work where they sort of apply, like, oh, this fortune must be about me. It says something really important is about to happen, and I have important things that are about to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm making it sound much more obvious than it is. But actually, you know, somebody's feedback like, oh, you need to support this with more examples. I mean, that applies to a lot of writing a lot of the time. So it's not that it's wrong, but it's just that there's a difference between that and understanding that we talked about yesterday. All right. I think that's enough rambling from me. Let's make some bots. And we're going to start by you guys doing some things. And so maybe, I don't know, if you have like a sheet of paper next to you, or if you want to open a little text pad on your computer, or if you want to open a Google Doc or something like that, whatever you want to do, I'm going to pose a series of questions, and I want you to try to answer them. By the way, I see a lot of comments in the chat. I see a number of a lot of comments in the chat, but I have not read anything in the chat just yet. So if there is somebody who has a question or anything like that, you might want to raise a virtual hand. Or if one of the facilitators wants to stop me and say, Mark, there's a question, whatever, then please do, because this is for you all, not for me.
Well, folks are sharing great stuff on the chat, papers and stuff. So yeah, I'll make sure to stop you if there's an important question. But actually, people are welcome to interrupt and ask as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, just absolutely. And again, remember that I probably can't see it if you say it in the chat, but I mean, just right now, because I'm sharing screen in particular. But if you can raise a virtual hand, or you can just speak up too. There's few enough here that
asked a good question, Mark. Like
Yeah.
just a little bit up. The rest of it is mostly just like comments and, like sharing. It's great. The chat's really nice. I mean, really generative. But her question is, well, she could read it herself, but I didn't want to take over. But it's down like around 12. Well, I was going to give the timestamp from my place, which is 12:16. It says currently customized GPTs are only accessible to users with a ChatGPT account. In the future, do you think they will be available to everyone, even without needing to log in to ChatGPT? So it's just like a forecasting question that maybe you have some insight on.
Yeah, I think it's highly likely. Here's something I wanted to tell you guys that I did not have the ChatGPT wasn't cooperating today. As we saw, its website did not look like it typically does. It didn't list my previous discussions. It didn't have me logged in, things like this. So when you do a session with ChatGPT, that's the same thing as setting up a custom ChatGPT bot. And what I mean by that is the things that you say in that one session persist. Because what does it mean to make a ChatGPT bot? Well, what it means is you give a persistent prompt that all of the responses harken back to, right? So it's almost as though you're taking, like, here's this elaborate prompt I've written about what it means to be a writing instructor with feedback, right? And the way, essentially, again, based on my understanding, the way this works is every time before it gives you its reply, it goes back and it checks with that system level prompt, and then it gives you your reply. But if you're in a session with ChatGPT, so when you talk to ChatGPT and you're logged in, again, even if you don't have a Plus account, it treats them like different sessions, right? And it gives them some weird name that it generates, like we were doing recipes yesterday. So like silly, unusual recipes, it'll say. And then all of the conversation you have with that, it's all been shaped by everything that's come before it. So you can experience creating a bot for yourself just by crafting those first few prompts that you put in, like you're telling it to be a certain kind of a bot. And then its subsequent conversation with you should follow those rules. So I tested that the other day. I gave it the prompt, be an email box helper for me. And what that means is I will give you an email message and I want you to assign it a color and I want you to assign it a level of urgency. And again, the color thing wasn't important. I just wanted to see if it would do it or not. And then as I had that conversation, and I see someone else saying that ChatGPT seems to be down right now. Yeah, something's going on. Hopefully it's not a major upgrade, but who knows? It is politics season around the world. Could be people are, the politicians need to generate their speeches, so they've overloaded the system. But anyway, so then I put that as my first prompt. Then every other prompt I gave, I would just upload an email message from my email box, and then its reply was always color, level of urgency. So essentially, I had made an email helper bot, but I wasn't using the custom GPT system. I was just in one ChatGPT session, and I had given it instructions to respond in a certain way. So, wait, Min's got more follow-up there. So maybe that I was off track. Like those who already have ChatGPT account, it will ask to log in if you access the GPT store if you don't have an account. It will ask you to log in if you, I see. So you're saying to access a custom GPT, you need to log in. Yeah. Well, so there's a slight workaround to that, I suppose, which is to use the system we'll be using, which is a little bit of a backdoor system, the Poe system. But whether you need to log into Poe to access those bots, I'm not sure. We'll see momentarily. So if the question is, do I think ChatGPT will always require you to log in? Probably, because they probably want your data. Will there be alternatives that you could find free and open source on Hugging Face? Probably. Will people set up other places where you can access ChatGPT bots because they're using their API to run the bot? Probably. Poe is kind of limited. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's limited in the sense that you don't use 4.0 all the time, but I found it to be pretty robust. Anyway, well, let's get back to our exercises then. And anyway, it doesn't mean I'm dismissive of those things. I think the concern implied by Min's question is, do we want to give our data away to these companies? For example, me uploading my emails, I was very careful not to upload emails that, had some sort of sensitivity to them or something I really didn't want to give away, and I obfuscated them a little bit. I anonymized them a little bit, but I definitely understand the impulse of not wanting to give sensitive information over to bots if you can help it, or rather to companies that are capitalizing on your data. That spirit I certainly appreciate. Okay, so let's go through some steps of making our bots. I'm just going to ask you a series of questions, and you just record your answers wherever you want to, just so you have them ready when we go over and we make our bots. So the first thing we need is, what's the job? So imagine some sort of task you want this chatbot to do, whether it's writing speeches for you, or writing grants applications, writing syllabi, writing toasts. And again, you can also inspire one another by putting some jobs you could imagine wanting a ChatGPT bot for in the chat. That might be a fun way to see what people are thinking. Thank you notes for party gifts. Clever things I could say in a Zoom. Great. Yeah, maybe I'd add like apologies. Analyzing others' body language, that's interesting. Oh, ask questions of the decade of transcripts. Oh, that's great. Again, sorry, I'll read that whole one in case we don't get it in the video recording. I have a podcast transcripts in the last 10 years and would love to build. Oh, no, would love to build a custom GPT to ask questions of the decade of transcripts. Writing letters that connect people further. Oh, I like that. All right, I'm going to go on to the next question, which I'd like you guys to answer. Again, wherever you're sort of keeping track of what your bot is going to be. Next question up is, what's the personality of your bot? So we have our job. We're listing our job first just because it's easy to think about. We might not put that first in our prompt, but what kind of personality do you want, if any? Again, for our thank you notes, maybe, it's going to be, friendly, ingratiating, grateful. And again, feel free to put some personalities in the chat. I'm just going to put some. So psychologist, analyst, yeah, maybe, yeah. Maybe I'm going to put my grateful. Helpful guide, yeah. Sarcastic. And Bonnie, what's the podcast about? You can say it out loud or put it in the chat.
It's about teaching in higher ed.
Great. Critical thinker, helper, assistant. Okay. Bot for developing training modules on media-related topics. Yeah, that sounds great. Helpful and supportive for faculty developing courses in LLMs. Good. A gracious, thoughtful, kind letter writer. There we go. All right, well, great. And again, I stress this idea of personality because it's so much about guiding the way language gets produced, but we don't think about it. You know what I mean? We assume that the job in our heads, I think we may have the ideal person to write this letter, like when we think, oh, just speak like a teacher, or just speak like a helper or whatever. But like we imagine, but we're just like with fiction writing, we're typically imagining quite a few other personality traits that we're just not articulating then, in terms of like who would be the best version of this for us, given our personality. So anyway, that's why we're stressing that right now. Let's take a look at our next question as we build these bots. Do you have any models of the output? Again, you don't have to answer this one, but it's just something to think about. Like, if you do you have access to anything where you might be able to find some similar output? And maybe it's worth for a second pausing on that a little bit. So if you're trying to find data sets or training models or training data or things like that, I think it's you know, there are plenty of sources out there online that you can search for, but it kind of helps. Oh wait, let me share differently. Hold on. Here we go. It kind of helps if you know that that's what these things are. They're called data sets. So I don't know. I had previously logged on to this website called Kaggle.com. I don't know if this is the best place to get data or not, but I just wanted to have something to demonstrate to you all. So I need to have an account for this one. Again, you can now know, like, keeping this word in mind, data sets, you know, you can maybe more easily find these, or sometimes if it's like training data, I usually put the word download in there. And you'll see that they've got, you know, many here that you can sort through. So we've got hit songs, we've got traveler items, love letters, love quotes. Those are ones I've looked at recently. We've got potato plant diseases. Again, now these, I should mention, by the way, that these aren't just training models. They're also data sets that the tool can use. Like they can act as knowledge bases or models, depending. And keep in mind, like for an LLM, there's not much difference between training data and models to some extent.
Mark, how did you find like all these data sets? This is new to me, and really, I mean, really excited seeing this. Like, how did you get to data sets like on the screen?
So I got here, I went through the website Kaggle.com.
Okay,
and
got
then,
it.
And then I logged in and I went to their data sets. Their navigation's a little bit funky. But to be honest, I started out because I knew I needed some knowledge bases this morning. And so I was Googling around. So at first I was like, you know, training models, and that wasn't giving me very much of what I wanted. And then I remembered, oh yeah, that's right. These folks call these things data sets. And then I said free, I usually put download. And that brought me back to Kaggle, and then you can see that there are lots of other places where you can find open data sets that you can download. And then the other thing I should mention with Kaggle, if you do find one that's useful to you and you want to use it for ChatGPT, you often have to like put it in a different format. So I'll walk through those steps in a second, but in other words, like a lot of its stuff is set up in like comma separated values, so CSV files, and we're going to use it in Poe, and Poe doesn't read those, so you got to like copy and paste them into something else, which isn't hard. It's just annoying because we're used to having things automatically. Well, now we got this annoying extra step. Okay, so let's go back to our steps in our process. Let's get this out of the way. So do we have any models for our output? Go ahead.
There are several questions about the data sets, Mark.
Yep.
Is someone wondering if the data sets are accurate or not biased or faulty? I don't know if you can answer that. And
So basically, Mark, Salma is asking whether the Kaggle website is free, and she's also asking whether the data sets are faulty or biased, and how can we make sure of their accuracy. So these are a few questions she put in the chat.
Yeah, I think these are great. That's outside of the scope of both my current specialty or my knowledge at this point. So I can't. Right now, there's source material that probably I suspect is highly biased, just by the nature of collection of data. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to turn you over to my data specialist folks for that question, which is outside of my wheelhouse. But yeah, I think you're asking the right questions there, and it's worth asking of any of these samples. I mean, some of them are like, the top 100 Billboard songs over the, pop songs over the past 100 years. Is that biased? Well, which song got to be top on Billboard might reflect a larger cultural bias, but is that list biased, meaning somehow inaccurate? I would doubt it. It seems like that information is pretty readily available. I don't know. I'd be surprised if they were excluding things from that list for some reason. But I'm sure but the questions about, where did they choose to get their data from? What did they choose to prioritize for their knowledge sets? All these are great questions that I think critical data studies folks are well versed in and advise us to be cautious. So I love the question. I think you should keep it in the back of your mind. Ultimately, I guess it probably depends what we mean by the word bias in relationship to some of this data. And just by Googling around, there were some unusual data sets that I came across. Some of them are like, contents of certain Reddit boards. One of them was Twitter complaints against airline companies. Again, it's the things that people collect are sort of fascinating to me. Another one was one that kind of didn't sit well with me was it was called like Last Words or something like that, or Death Row Last Words, where these were words that had been collected from inmates. I don't know. That sounds like a horrible data set with like that I would not want to use for this kind of a purpose in particular. Now, should we cherish words of people that a culture has killed? Sure, but should we mine them for the content of our bots? Well, I don't know. I don't think so. But if we are studying that, on the other hand, not using it to make some sort of death row bot, but instead someone who studies that kind of language, perhaps, again, I guess it depends on how you're using the data too. Anyway, again, I think it's good to problematize these data sets. What we're talking about now, we've actually moved our conversation into something that's called retrieval augmented generation. So that is the process of, and again, I'm sort of quoting some websites here. It's the process of optimizing the output of a large language model so it references an authoritative knowledge base outside of its training data sources before generating a response. So an RAG is, or a RAG as they're called, is one way to add some amount of data. I have a problem calling this knowledge, but some amount of data to your bot so that it can have a domain of quote unquote expertise. again, it's different from saying that it's knowledgeable in that area. Like let's as often as possible, let's not make that mistake of, you know, giving it sentience, giving it knowledge. Like it just has access to patterns of data that are tied to that field of study or that field of research or that area. Okay, so let's head over then to, I think we should use Poe since ChatGPT is down right now, just for the sake of making a bot, seeing how it works. Again, we can apply these things later to ChatGPT, custom GPTs if you wish. But for now, let's head over to Poe. And also because just from talking to Maha, it sounds like a lot of people around the world have access to Poe, even folks who don't have access to ChatGPT or certain aspects of ChatGPT. So let's go over there to Poe, Poe.com. And what do I need here? I need to share screen again, my browser. Okay, let's go over to Poe. And I was already creating a bot in Poe. So but before we get there, let me just show you some of the bots that I have so you get a feel for them. And again, Poe's a really easy to use system. And, you know, I find it inviting. Poe's not a non-profit, you know, like will you create a bot in Poe and then, you know, a year from now, then they start to charge and then blah, blah, blah. Yeah, probably. So let's just use it as a platform to learn these principles and to exercise and let's not become too reliant. It's like, again, any of us who have been doing digital things for longer than a minute know this game of like, oh, I put my whole heart and soul into X platform. Then it got sold to whomever. Now I can no longer access my, you know, like whatever. But again, just as an exercise for the next month or two, Poe.com seems to work fine. So let's explore it. So here's that bot I told you about, Coach Tutor. And let's see if we have to go get to my bots. Profile. My bots. Okay, let's go to Coach Tutor. So Coach Tutor is a version of me. And its job is to give feedback on papers. So let's go to, if I click on it, it'll give me access to the bot itself. And then anyone can see the prompt, but I'm going to go into the edit page so that we can look at it a little bit more closely. So you have to give it a handle. I give it the handle Coach Tutor. Again, you're going to need one of these for your bot. So think about what name you want to give it. You can decide what platform it's running on. Yeah, it looks like 3.5 Turbo is what we can get for free. Got various Claude ones we could use. Claude's pretty good. I haven't used Gemini too much. And then again, you can see some of these are limited by subscriber access. So for our purposes, I think it's better just to go with, you know, just one of the ones that's freely available. Although you're welcome to experiment to see what you think of these. Okay, so now we get this larger block of text. This is the most important thing. This is our persistent prompt. And then I'm just going to go through mine briefly. Not that it's how you should do yours, but just give you a sense. So be a witty and challenging college writing tutor bot. You can see how I must perceive myself, my aspirations. Following these guidelines. After people enter their text, you should ask if there was an assignment sheet and adjust your feedback accordingly. Now, I wanted to do something very, very specific in the interaction. So I've prioritized all, like, think about a prompt as prioritizing what comes first, really. And again, I'm gonna say those important caveats. Is this exactly how it works? Is this precisely as it works? Could it work differently if you put things at the bottom? This is just based on my trial and errors, how I've determined that this seems to work best. Please, if different things work for you, please try them out. Let us know, share that knowledge. Okay. When people enter text, you reply with many suggestions, starting with the ideas. Always offer alternative arguments and points of view. So the way I think of writing is about the ideas more than the like actual, well, it's in the word choice, but you know, punctuation isn't what I teach for a living anymore because of Grammarly and all sorts of reasons. Sometimes I do teach lessons in it, but really the ideas are what at stake. It's a, you know, writing is a manifestation of thinking. I don't have to convince anybody here of that, but so suggest alternative rhetorical stances and raise counter arguments. So again, I'm trying to get it to focus on the argument, not the content or not the delivery, which is difficult because it doesn't really understand things. Tie your comments to specific sentences and paragraphs of the writing they input. So again, just I would say that to any student I was asking to write something. Do not rewrite their text, right? I don't want to read all this ChatGPT generated text. I'm sure I do, but I'd rather instead, do make occasional puns and a few pop culture and literary references. That's just a little color to make it a little bit more like the way I teach. Attitude. So I try to specify different aspects of the character. You don't have to do it this way. It's just how I did it, just to make it super, as far as I could think of, clear to the bot. The attitude is a bit sassy, but always start with something nice first and end with something encouraging. Some of us refer to that as the sandwich model of feedback. Be specific. Style of response, extensive reply, use lots of analogies, offer alternative points of view, challenge their ideas. Don't revise passages, but give constructive feedback on places that need work, right? Again, when I use in my own practice, format in each response, prioritize critiquing their ideas, give the most feedback on the ideas, then discuss strength there, maybe I'll put strengths as long as I'm in here, and rhetoric of the argument. Be funny. At the end of the discussion, discuss style of sentences, voice, and other qualities of the prose. So look how far down I stuck that in that's essentially my rubric, right? For how I grade too. Last, ask if what you said was clear, or if they have any question or other text they want you to review. Also, ask if there were special requirements to the assignment sheet they need help with. Okay, and then I have this whole long section, which is the things that I value in writing and the things that I don't value in writing. I'm taking a minute with this one because this whole exercise was derived, or this whole bot was derived from an exercise that Jeremy Douglas dreamed up called the Perfect Tutor, in which he thought it would be helpful to have students who are in a class create their own bots and then to experiment with what kind of results they got and maybe see how what results they get, feedback they get from other bots that other people make. And I just want to stop there on that exercise for just 1 second and say, this exercise is not an exercise in making the perfect bot for them. It's an exercise in them learning what their learning style is, and an exercise in them really deciding what kind of rubric they want to create for themselves. And just to get students to think about making their own rubric, to me, is so empowering to them that if at the end of the day, we don't even have a bot that's useful to them at all, it really doesn't matter to me because they've gone through a really important process in a kind of novel and material way. So again, for those of you who are teachers and you're thinking about incorporating bot making into your classes, you might want to think about the bot making as teaching something other than creating a perfect bot, if that makes any sense. Anyway, I'm just sort of highlighting the brilliance of Jeremy's exercise. Okay, let's go back into our bot making for a second. And we've got, now look right here, it says add knowledge source. Now I haven't But I could add a knowledge, like if I had, let's say, end comments I'd given on all my students' papers, I could add that, right? Which might not be a bad idea. Then it really would learn the patterns of my feedback, and it would, perhaps even sound like me if that's what I wanted. Or maybe I could find some other corpus of feedback on papers. We'll come back to that in a second. So then you can give it a greeting message if you would like. So I say, hey, I'm AirSAT's coach. Give me some writing to respond to, and I will give you feedback. Flesh and blood coach may not agree with me. I had to put that because my students started taking my POBOT's feedback as though it were my own, as though it were even worse, as though it were gospel, as though you should 100% listen to anybody on their feedback. Yeah, so I had to make sure that caution was there. Now look at this advanced tab for a second. So we got suggest replies, which I have not used. Render markdown content I have used so that it's can sort of highlight things if we want. But more importantly, look at this custom temperature. Now remember, temperature is this level of variability. So the higher the temperature, the more randomness, the more unusual responses you'll get. So when people say, oh, ChatGPT doesn't seem very creative, some of that, your impression of its creativity is based on this temperature, a more modest temperature, lower temperature, and we're going to have more predictable, sort of conventional results, I guess. That might be a way to say it, more generic. And then if you increase that temperature a bit, then you're going to get things that might seem much more creative. In other cases, it might just seem wacky and inappropriate. So great. So we've got a bio. I haven't really tried very hard at that. You can decide on that. I made my bot publicly accessible, and let these other features stand of related bots or whatever. And I also put show the prompt in the profile because I'm interested in people. People can take my prompt and they can create their own bot. They can do whatever they want to. Okay, so there, I'm going to save this because we made some changes. And there's my bot. It's all set up, ready to go. All right. And again, it's nice to have a picture handy if you want to use one for your bot, just so it doesn't have like the generic image. So if you look over here, you can see that I've been creating a new bot. And I'm going to call this the hit maker song bot. And I'm going to use ChatGPT, I guess. And I just want to show you one aspect of this that's different than the bots that we were looking at so far is I did add a knowledge source. So I found that Billboard list of song titles. I believe when I downloaded it, like I said, in CSV form. So I had to copy that out somewhere else and just put it in a simple text file. Or saved it in TXT format. I couldn't do that out of whatever program I was using, so I copied and pasted it into, I don't know, Word and saved it as a TXT. And then I was able to upload it. So, in theory, whatever, you are a brilliant songwriter. Your best gift is to come up with song titles that will be hits. The person ask for what the topic of the song is and reply with 5 recommended chart topping titles. The personality, greasy. A little smarmy. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna leave it light for now just to see how this knowledge base works. Oh, wait. Let's see what I need to do. Bio, song title. I'm just making these sort of generic. Let's see what if I got everything here. Okay, let's test this out. Can somebody give me what the song's
Mark, we've
about?
got a question in
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
chat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Someone is asking, did you get the data set for your bot from Kaggle, the website you mentioned earlier? And also another question is that can we link to a URL like a data set from a URL like data like GitHub?
That's a good question. I did it through downloading. Let's double check that in edit mode. Yeah, you've got to download it first and then upload it. And it's got a 50 megabyte. That's the air problem too. On this one, it's got a 50 megabyte limit. A lot of those data sites go into the gigabyte. So, again, for this demonstration one, you're going to have to download and then upload. All right, can somebody give me a topic for our song so we can just see how this bot works? Again, it's pretty rudimentary. I haven't tried very hard on it, but what is our song about? You can just put it in the chat. Revolution. Okay. Okay. Anything more we want to add? Just a generic revolution or revolution in any particular sense? Hating Mondays. Okay. Yeah, against Mondays. How about a revolution against Mondays? Oh, that's a pretty good topic right there. Let's go. Free from Monday chains, unleashing the Monday storm, rise of the Monday rebels. I think I might use that one. Mondays can't hold us down. Revolutionary Monday redemption. Yeah. So about as innovative as pop music tends to be. Okay, bye Danielle. Can somebody give me one more song title for our song bot? I just want to try one more just to see if it. Oh, it does on a second try. And another topic for a song? Eating cheese, a cooking revolution. Okay. Cheese-based. All right, we'll do that one next, Irene. So cheese-based cooking revolution. Wait, is it? Yeah. Oh, these are a little better. Cheese symphony, melting hearts and igniting pans. Fromage frenzy, a revolution on every plate. I'm not sure what these subtitles are about. The Great Cheese Resistance, Cheddar Revolution, Swiss Affair. Okay, wait, I'm gonna try. Irene had Africa Next Frontier. Let's see what we get. Unleashing Africa's Potential, Rising Stars of Africa, Safari of Dreams, Afro Horizons, Lion-Hearted. Again, I'm not sure what's going on with these subtitles. How many songs have subtitles? Okay, great. I mean, not. I mean, whatever. No, these aren't brilliant. I'm not gonna quit my job yet and write these songs. If anybody wants to write these songs with me, let's do it. But let's take a little bit of time for you guys to build your bots and play with this a little bit. And then you can once you've made a bot, share it in the chat and we can demo and talk to some of these. And then also, this is a great time just to open it up to questions. as you're trying to build these bots.
Mark, this is Bonnie, and I'm the one who was sharing that I've got 10 years of transcripts, but they're not currently all in a repository other than on my WordPress site. And so I feel like I'm trying to jump to too many things. I feel comfortable with everything you just shared as far as I can build a bot that way. But when it comes to what I think is maybe called a small language model as opposed to a large language model, that's where I kind of get stuck. I've heard about this website called Hugging Face. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if I need to have somehow scrape the code from my WordPress so that all those transcripts that are there are in some repository, and then how I connect repositories. And it's not like I'm asking you to teach that necessarily. I literally don't know what the things are called. So I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what it's
Yeah.
called. So that every time I go, I'm like, okay, yeah, I got that. I got that. And there just seems like this huge gaping hole between what I want to do and what seems within my reach at the moment. So I don't know if you have any steps to advise me to get to learning more about these smaller language models and how to set them up.
Yeah, I have not set up a small language model myself, and Hugging Face would be the right place to go to find an open source one that you could just sort of download and start playing with. Or one that you don't have to download and start playing with. But no, that it's not something I've literally done before. I do think it's likely that you will have to download the text first, but not 100% necessary. Let's take a look over at, while people are working on this stuff, let me go over to Hugging Face real quick and just see if they have a more straightforward answer to this question. And again, if anybody knows the answer to this, this is your time to shine. Hi Maha, welcome.
Yeah, when I go to Hugging Face, which I said, I'm not even sure that's the right kind of place I would want to go. It is, I think I would want to build a custom data set, but I mean, this is very much, it looks like coders, and it is rather intimidating for somebody who is not a coder.
Yeah, I understand, but some of what's on Hugging Face are like LLMs that you can just use and access, like they're generators just like everything else. So one of the things I wanted to search, I was just doing a search on right now, is to see if there were any on Hugging Face that sort of had simple interfaces where you could just upload a URL and say, use this for the data source. I don't see any small website data. Let's see.
I was looking at transcripts. I was looking at just doing a general search on the.
Yeah, I don't think you need transcripts because, again, your contents are already on a website, right?
They are, but my early research has made me suspect that I'm probably going to need to scrape them because they're all on these different page posts. Probably going to need to write some JavaScript to scrape them and then get them in. I don't know. Do I want to store it in like an Amazon Web Services maybe, or yeah, that's where I get stuck. But
yeah. Well, again, let me look into this like after the session too, because
yeah.
I'd be really interested in the answer as well. And it falls into the realm of not my specialty, but I know a few people who can help with this question.
Yeah, I didn't mean to take us off track, but since
No, it's fine.
you said
I'm
if anybody
hoping,
has questions.
I'm hoping in the meantime, people are making their,
I see one in the chat. There's someone has
someone has posted those already?
Dr. Rock in the chat.
Okay, all right, well, let's go and take a look at that. Let me see one more thing on this search. Yeah, no, let me look up this question separately. But again, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like some of this stuff that's already been packaged, like ChatGPT and Poe, like it's easy and it's accessible. But then once you make the leap over to Hugging Face, it does feel like a
Yeah.
skill set. Like it feels like it's obfuscated like several levels deep.
Yeah.
That makes it, yeah.
I had some fun experimenting with Google's Notebook LM, which is
Okay.
my understanding is like creating your own little small language model, and is worth looking at if no one's heard of that before. It's a really interesting idea. And so I uploaded, they do have some size limitations like you were talking about earlier. I uploaded some milestone episodes and some that I have about artificial intelligence, and it was really remarkable what it generated. So I see so much of the promise of what it could be like if I had all 520 episodes up there. That is really inspiring to me, just because I probably did maybe 40 episodes or something like that, and I really see the promise of it. But that was a very narrow thing, and then I don't even know if anybody, it's not like somebody could go and use my Google Notebook LM. So
Right.
I'm starting to weave together my knowledge, but I haven't crossed over there yet. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mark put is that to the Google Notebook
Yeah,
LM? Yeah,
just
if
to the
anyone's
Notebook
not
LM.
tried that, it was really fascinating. But that's more for your own personal edification, personal notes that you might want to update, and then generate some responses around whatever it is that you have uploaded there or researched notes that you have.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was wondering similar things with Gemini and Google Docs. Like, why wouldn't would your Gemini by default have access to every Google Doc you've ever put in there?
Mm.
And the temporary answer seems to be no, but I feel like that I don't really trust that. That answer doesn't seem right to me somehow, because the things you ask Gemini to do within any Google Doc suggest that it has access to the entire Google Doc. Anyway, I mean, again, I don't know. I feel like there's what they tell us it can do and what it can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to ask you some
No,
questions.
it's a great question, and again, not one that I have an easy answer to, but I'm interested in asking around like what the lightest way to get there is. Well, let's look at Jessica's Dr. Rock. And Jessica, do you want to introduce Dr. Rock at all?
Sure, I can do that. So I teach English as well for college students, usually first and second year, and I do a lot of pop culture writing classes. So this is ideally meant to help those folks with their essay creation and revision, but I also told it that it could talk to them about any of the topics we study. So I'm just playing with it myself, but that's what I've come up with so far.
I love it. And what do you imagine that they will put into here, like some paragraph that they've written about pop culture, or?
Yeah, I think I might encourage them to take a look at it for essay feedback. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And it is programmed ideally to do that without rewriting it for them. Obviously, there's been like a huge boom with students using ChatGPT, and I get a bunch of ChatGPT essays that all kind of look like the same thing and read the same way. So this is letting them use AI in a way that will help them learn instead of letting them use AI to just copy paste what the AI writes. I hope.
Right, exactly. Okay, so what do we need? Let's maybe we need to get ourselves some sample text here. Let's get a And, oh, well, here, maybe we could feed things, well, sample, pop culture, essay. Oh, this is probably how our students get them in the first place. But this is before ChatGPT. Or is this just what pop culture is? Yeah, we don't need examples of writing reviews. I don't know. That's not really what you're having. You're not really having them write reviews though, huh? Let's say pop culture. All right. Well, we'll just assume that this. No. Okay. I'm just going to grab this just to get some text. Then we'll put it into your bot. Okay, let's see what we got. So this is pretty extensive, but hey there, thanks for sharing your writing with me. It seems like you're discussing the movie Lost in Translation, specifically focusing on a scene where the main characters try to inform the president about an impending comet collision. Wow, that that seems. I feel like that's the wrong movie, isn't it? Let's dive in and see how we can improve your writing. First, I'd like to know a bit more about the assignment. What are the specific directions for the essay? Is there a particular format requirement you need to follow? Knowing this will help me provide targeted feedback. Now, again, when I think about a writing tutor in a writing center, that's probably what they would say, right? Let's talk about your introduction. It's great that you have given a brief summary on the movie. However, it might be helpful to provide some context for readers who may not be familiar with Lost in Translation. Consider briefly mentioning the genre or director of the film to give your readers better understanding. Okay, again, I feel like we're in the realm of good advice. Still doesn't feel like they're talking about the right movie. Moving on to the second paragraph, you mentioned how the president and her son are more concerned about the midterm elections than the comet collision. This is a crucial point, but it would be helpful to provide some specific evidence. By doing so, you'll strengthen your argument. In the next paragraph, you mentioned the impatience and critique scientists face. How does this lack of understanding communication affect the scientist's ability to save the world? You quote someone named Stevens who talks about the struggle to communicate in the movie. Be valuable to provide some context for this quote. Who is Stevens? Overall, your rating is off to a good start. Before we wrap up, do you have any questions? Okay. So going back to that piece of writing that we picked up, they're talking about don't look up is the movie, right? I believe, not Lost in Translation. Yeah, look, it's right there in the. So here it gets tricked, obviously, because we didn't give it the complete piece of writing, and if we had sort of started up here at the top of this text, it would have had the right one. But I think this might be a useful time just to pause for a second and to remember the sheer confidence with which these chatbots will hallucinate with authority. And this is something that I refer to as the Henry Higgins effect, based on the musical My Fair Lady and the play Pygmalion, where Eliza gets its name. Because in my experience, students will get this. So the hazard of doing this experiment without letting the experiment itself be what you're challenging, like, let's talk about rubrics, let's talk about AI, let's talk about the kind of response you get, is that sometimes students will take this feedback and they're just looking for the right answer. They're just looking to get the higher grade. They have so much insecurity about their own writing that it can also mislead them. So you just have to be careful. Okay, great. Any other bots that people have made so far as you're making your custom bots? here's Moodle Coach from Jenny. And Moodle, and Jenny, do you want to introduce your bot?
Sure. I went real basic. I just said, hey, you got somebody who's trying to learn how to use the Moodle LMS to set up their course. You're an instructional designer. You're helpful and supportive. Give them, advice on the best tool for doing what they need to do, and
Oh, great.
go from there. So.
And is it constrained to a particular, is it going to help them pick which LLMS, like Brightspace or Canvas or whatever, or is it assumed that they have an LLM or an LLMS?
I specifically said the Moodle LMS because I'm actually trying to learn Moodle right now for a new job.
Okay, great.
So.
One thing I just want to point out, now you're doing this here, but just in general, you may want to, this is for everybody, with that initial statement, you may want to either give them a prompt or ask them a question as the part of your intro statements. Okay. Because again, this is just sort of applies to everybody. Just like Eliza begins with a question or a prompt to the participant. And again, you're doing that here, ask me anything. But sometimes people need that initial, like, someone asking them a question so that they can reply to it. But let's ask it a question. Let's say, I am teaching a course in biology, and I am struggling to determine which features of Moodle might best serve my course. What tools or applications on Moodle can you recommend? And how might I use those? Something like that.
Can you share your screen so we can see the feedback?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you guys were, this is bad zooming etiquette. Apologies. So there's considerable list here: files, URL, book, create a multi-page resource, quizzes, assignments, forums, glossary, wiki, H5P, lessons, announcements, chat, gradebook, completion, tracking. Okay. All right. How do you like its response so far?
I mean, it's a good start because I could say, well, I think I want to use quizzes. Can you tell me more? Or that's something like that. So
yeah, let's try
it's
it.
almost too much information, but also it's
yeah. Okay. I mean, this is pretty comprehensive. Having set up quizzes on Moodle before, this looks pretty comprehensive. Now, again, there's a question of, like, at what point does it feel like you're just reading the documentation on Moodle, like,
I'll be honest, I think the documentation on Moodle is very frustrating. So
so maybe this is a better way to access it. And
give me some guidance or some places to start actually might be very useful.
Yeah, and did you upload anything for a knowledge base for this, or this is just
I did not. I couldn't quickly find something, so I thought instead of spending a bunch of time searching, I'll just see what it does without.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Moodle is pretty widely used on the, and has a lot of online documentation that I wouldn't be surprised if ChatGPT was trained on already. I mean, again, I don't know. I haven't seen anything just yet it's 100% clear to me that it's Moodle specific. Although again, like shuffling questions and things like that, then you might ask a question like, what are the advantages or disadvantages to allowing multiple attempts on a quiz? Like you might wonder what it does with like a more content level question. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, these seem pretty comprehensive. Now, one of the things you mentioned is that it felt like these answers felt like a lot. So again, you could always tweak your prompt and say like, don't overwhelm the person asking you for, stay at the high level for a little while, let people dig down, that sort of thing, right? So that, or like reply only with like just the top level bullet points and then let people ask follow-up questions. Now, it does say here 6 messages left, and that reminds me, I can't remember if Poe has a question limit per day or something like that, and again, just remember if you run into that these same prompts, you can just sort of copy the prompt and put it on a different LLM and play with it that way. But yeah, I can't remember. I don't know if those are newly imposed limits or what the limits are. Okay. All right. Well, Jenny, are you pretty happy? How do you feel about this? Like, is it doing what you want it to do?
I mean, given that I spent 5 minutes setting it up, I think, I think it's pretty cool. I think a little more thoughtful building, would even refine it more.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And again, I would want to play with it. I actually would seriously consider keeping it up as I'm trying to work through what I'm doing in Moodle and go, wait, this isn't working for me. What am I doing wrong or something like that, and see what I can get.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, again, like as someone who's used Moodle quite a bit myself and has like had to Google around for the answers to these questions from time to time, I think your bot would be extremely helpful to me. So I'm glad you've created it. All right, let's go back and see what other bots we have or what else is going on in
Got a
the
few in the
chat.
chat, Mia Zamora and
All right,
Sukaina as well.
Let's see what you've created, Mia. This is
I made one called Missive Master.
Mr. Master. Yeah, tell us a little bit about Mr. Master.
So it's Missive Master, like
Missive Master.
yeah, like a letter writer master. Yeah. And basically I just gave very specific outline of the kind of letter, like polite, caring, thoughtful, metaphors, clarification of a problem, mental health suggestions, all of this stuff in the prompts. And then it trained, the data set was 20,000 Dear Abby letters, and it really works. I put some stuff in there.
I'm having trouble accessing your bot. Is it publicly available?
Oh, maybe I didn't make it. Let's see.
Also, double check the link.
Let's see. Maybe I got the wrong share. Now hold on. Let me try to put it in the chat again. It'll be the last thing in the chat is a link, because I think I got the wrong. Yeah, that's the one. I'm sorry, I put the wrong link in. But it might not be.
Great.
Oh, it's working.
Yep, it's publicly available. Yep. Let's take a look at Missive Master. Great.
It's just interesting how it scrambles all of those letters and then does the formulation, especially the metaphorical part. I asked for them to use, metaphor, analogy, all this stuff to get at someone's problem.
I don't know. Now I need a problem that I want to share that isn't an actual problem that I'm having.
Well, I put in, I'm about to break up with my boyfriend and I'm
Okay.
miserable. And then all this
Okay.
stuff came out that was like, wow. And then I put things back afterwards. Like after the letter, I did more questions like, will I ever heal and how can I heal? And it said a lot of really good things.
Okay, I got one. So I'm about to break up with my girlfriend, but I'm worried she's going to break up with me first.
Oh, that's good. Let's see what it says.
As challenging as delicate porcelain.
I know. Here,
Porcelain.
give me the shorter version of that reply, please. Here, just so that we can get the whole thing in. Okay. Relationships can be fragile, and the fear of a breakup can weigh heavily on us. Before making any decisions, reflect on your reasons for wanting to end the relationship. Have an open conversation with your girlfriend to understand each other's perspectives. Remember, you cannot control her actions, but you can control your own response. Embrace the uncertainties and find growth in the journey. Reflect on the lessons learned and how they have shaped you. Trust in the path ahead and the wisdom it holds with warmth and understanding. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty good advice, but wait, I have to look back at the longer one because it looks like it's a little bit more fun. We got a quote from Rilke in there.
Yeah, I asked for that. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, not Rilke, but I asked for like citations of deep thinkers and philosophers and, so it's interesting that just on that data set, plus obvious. So it's the RAG part, which is the prompt, right? And then there's also just Poe having stuff to pull from. And that's where the Rilke probably comes from, unless Dear Abby once referred to Rilke. But it's interesting that it does the combo of the two. Anyway,
right.
Now I've got to think of something more useful to me. But this was just a test.
I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of people that would be useful to.
It's like an instant Dear Abby, and Dear Abby's think she's gone, right? She's passed.
Yeah.
So that's
fascinating. Yeah. We could all use that. And again, it's not like this advice is. So one thing that people have noticed is that, or suggested, is that maybe people like, why did people close? Supposedly this happened. Why did people close the door so that they could talk to Eliza, a very simple bot, in 1966? And it might be the same reason we write in our journals, or it might be the same reason a workbook, like an emotional workbook, might get more honest. Like we might feel more comfortable with that than we feel. Right. So it's not that we think that the bot is sentient or wise or anything like that. It's just that anonymity, or the perceived anonymity, makes us more comfortable to share things. Now, again, keep in mind that you are turning your people are talking to that bot. They're sending their data out somewhere. So maybe they should be more cautious. But it's interesting to think about. Like I've heard about people using ChatGPT to like rehearse conversations. Anyway, I find this interesting, but that's slightly off topic. So let's go to Fallacy Finder. And Marianne, do you want to introduce your bot?
Oh, yeah. So I teach rhetoric and writing, and students really don't get it, that they take things for face value. And I thought that probably when they see it, they need help.
Okay, great. So let's get I don't know, I'm just gonna pick an arbitrary speech by anybody.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? Maybe someone who might have used a logical fallacy at some point. Now we got to be careful because ChatGPT has certain defenses against things that are tied to current elections that are kind of surface level. But anyway, so here we've got here's a speech. Okay, and let's put that into your box, which I believe is here. Yeah. Okay. Here is my speech. Wow, it's finding apparently there are more than a few fallacies in this
Of
speech.
course. You hit the jackpot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna overload the system.
Mm.
False attribution, unsubstantiated claim, sweeping generalization.
Yeah, so I made it clear that they have to explain the fallacy itself.
Yeah, great.
Point and explain it.
Yeah, so again, what would be interesting would be to see, I think just testing it out, thinking about our conversation yesterday, are there some fallacies that it finds more reliably than others?
Yeah.
Like here's one that the second one that it marks as rhetorical question. We have hundreds and thousands of people here, and I just want them to be recognized by the fake news media. Turn your camera, please, and show what's really happening out there, because these people are not going to take it any longer. Why won't the media recognize this crowd? Now, that's interesting. It's so it's saying rhetorical question, but it seems like it's going to ask, that's not the fallacy.
So there are two things I specified. Find out the fallacies, and if there are rhetorical questions, state them. So students learn that there are fallacies and there are things that are not statements.
I see. Okay. So there's like an implied question or something like that. Interesting. Okay. All right. So this may be a real tool to them finding their fallacies, or at least getting some assistance locating them. And again, there could be a really good critical exercise where you take a text that you, again, like this one, where there are lots of fallacies, you let them run it through their bot, and then you say, okay, which fallacies did it miss or misidentify? And like that might be a really great exercise to get them to critically think about
that's advanced.
The nature of fallacies and which ones are easy to spot or automatically spot or not. Okay, we got Sakana. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. I apologize. Do you want to introduce your spew think piece bot?
Yeah, this is just me having a little bit of fun. So I made a bot that if you put in anything you think about, it'll automatically generate a think piece for you. And I asked it to be slightly sarcastic and ironic. So yeah.
Very good. Okay.
So just give it a try.
Give us a think piece on the future of the British royal family.
And I also said like the prompt was what you feel about it. But yeah.
Okay, so do you want to read any of its response?
No, I mean, I think I was just thinking that, sometimes you have a thought and that you can't be bothered to write the think piece.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, I wanted to make it like, so where it says it clears the throat, I asked it to be sarcastic and ironic.
Nice.
In its responses, and if I were doing a little bit more work, I might ask it to use different types of language because what I want this to come across is not serious.
Have I spelled artisanal?
But I like kind of what it's written.
Yeah.
I mean, what I have found though,
I
also put 2 in before, is that it still does the both sides thing.
Oh, really? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and yet they're
And I
staunch
used
defenders.
Claude for this one, the sort of middle version of Claude. And I was just
Can
thinking
you
maybe I
share,
might
or
adjust the temperature.
let's take a look at your prompt if it's available. Let's see, is it?
I'm not sure I switched it on, but let me go and do that.
Because we've been experimenting in, I guess might be interesting for you guys to know. So I've been doing a separate study, a year-long study in disinformation and the use of bots. And
Okay.
we have been using ChatGPT's API to create sort of virtual voters who could comment in a forum and pass themselves off as regular voters, and then to influence, just to sort of create disinformation or to promote certain ideas. And
Okay. I've shared the prompt now, so
great. So we've been able to get those bots to hold particular political stances and to be consistent. But let's take a look at the prompt here. So you are the think piece spewer. You need to produce a paragraph of 5 to 6 sentences for a topic based on a person entering some phrases or questions. The style needs to be professional and friendly with some irony or sarcasm, but with a clear argument or stance. Ask the person to say what they think about the issue, or whether they feel strongly about it. Yeah, I think you can explicitly say, you know, only argue for one side of an issue.
Yeah, I
know,
didn't put that. Yeah.
Don't be even-handed, and then it should be able to follow those direct. Hard to say. So there are certain quirks about bots that I've noticed. And one is that bots, the LLMs seem to want to please the person who's interacting with them, like by default. There must be a more scientific way to say that. They tend to produce what they think the person wants to hear. So what's interesting is when we created these political bots for a little while, just sort of testing them out, again, using ChatGPT 4 and the API. At first, they could like be pulled over to another side that you didn't want them to be pulled over to, because they were so desirous of producing content that was pleasing to the person who was interacting with them, that they would just agree. They would their tendency was to agree with the interactor. Now, again, they're not humans. They're not agreeing with anything. Anyway, so I think if you just strengthen that request, it'll get there.
Sure, thanks. That was very helpful.
Okay, so yeah, of course. But I love that idea of, but also there's something like really beautiful about this idea. I have to let my dog out. There's something very beautiful about this idea of a think piece that you don't really want to write. You've got the idea, but you don't feel like you've got the energy to write it.
Yeah, that was me today.
I feel like in my life, I have the opposite problem, where there are too many people around me who seem more than happy to share their entire think piece on an issue. So I guess, is there anybody else who wants to share their bot before we wrap up? And then maybe I could say some wrapping up things. Okay, well, let me share some wrapping up thoughts. So yeah, so I do want to share with you that little experiment that we did, which was to create political actors who participated on a Mastodon server. Mastodon's like another social media platform, but it's usually closed, so you can control who's there. So we had a little closed server. It had these virtual actors on it who were political, just I don't know, citizens, just people who could vote. We created a fictional proposition. In the California system, you can directly vote on certain political propositions that don't have legal status, but sort of, because they always get contested, but sort of, it's sort of direct democracy, not really. And then we told the bots to hold one opinion So one side of the issue, and then humans came in that would sort of argue for the other issue. And then we brought in testers to have conversations with these bots and to have conversations with the people about this made up, this fictional proposition that they would learn about. So they would have a conversation for about 20 minutes on the social media platform, and then they would say if their opinion changed at all based on the conversation that happened. And then after that question, we would ask, hey, did any of these people you interacted with seem funny to you? Like seem unusual? Did you think any of them were bots? And again, we only had small test samples so far, but in our very, very small testing so far, the bots were not recognized. So even though we just did that test with Poe and we found some limits to what it was producing, or maybe, again, Patty Taylor has found that my bots don't necessarily give accurate feedback or the same kind of feedback a writing instructor would give. And again, yesterday's session, we talked about why that might be the case. On the other hand, these bots have reached this level of language production proficiency that they do in limited contexts and limited domains do pass. And so there's this other side of it that's like, brings us back to that Mary Shelley quote that we started out with. That's, in some ways a terrifying proposition. That quote, no one chooses evil because it's evil. One only mistakes it for happiness the good one seeks. And again, in this particular election moment, it does seem like we've moved from the level of Twitter bots, which are, following their grammars and producing regular statements, to a kind of bot that, truly can pass a lot of people's, in certain domains, like social media platforms, can pass as everyday humans, and of course might have the ability as a consequence to convince people of things. And maybe they don't convince people directly through logic. Maybe they convince people through peer pressure, making it seem like, look at all these people who agree with this idea. They seem like they're rational people, right? I mean, we know, our political economists will caution us against this. A second thing I just want to throw out there is, again, just to reiterate, like, I think still, if you're going to bring this into a writing class or a critical reasoning class, the activity might not be you, teacher, make the perfect bot and then give it to the students. It might be, hey, students, let's each of us make a bot. Again, that was more the spirit of Jeremy's exercise. Let's all make a bot and let's reflect on what we learned from making that bot. Or maybe the class makes a bot together and they sort of fine tune it, and that's part of the learning process. A third thing I do want to throw out there is, thanks to that question we got earlier about how to make the small language model, I will look into that. And again, I'll be happy to share what I find of how to make, the most direct way to make a small language model for yourself. Again, that was a great resource that was shared about the Google Notebook. I think that one seems like a good low hanging fruit. And most of all, again, I hope all of our bot making does follow the spirit of our lots of things of MYFest, and the spirit of, even like Joseph Weizenbaum, and again, all of this artificial language generation making makes us think about what we really value in our humanity, our human experience of interacting with real humans, verifiable humans out there in the world. And again, just like this great session, getting to share ideas and learn from one another. Anyway, let's put a wrap on it there. So thank you again. Thank you, Miha and Maha, who's not here anymore. Thank you, Yasser and Irene, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Mark. That was really, really fascinating. And it's interesting to think of Eliza Weizenbaum. What's his name? Weizenbaum?
Weizenbaum, yep. Yep.
Yeah, he felt the horror. I don't know. Today I didn't really feel the horror because I put it to task in a way that I tried to make it human by finding a data set that was like pretty humanistic, right? You know, like letters of advice and care and that kind of thing. But
You know, and remember, Weizenbaum's horror happens when he starts to hear people monetizing it, when he starts to hear
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
using it in ways that were short-circuiting. Well, keep in mind too, he was dealing with a much different kinds of like very rudimentary chatbots, but also like, for example, Weizenbaum, who himself had done a lot of psychological therapy, like he had gone through the process himself, truly valued it and did not
Yeah.
want to see it offloaded.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of people have said, hey, for the person who just needs help right now and can't access a therapist, is there a version of these bots that might be somewhat that might be as helpful as a book on the shelf might be, at least, or as helpful as a call-in radio show where they're listening to other people talk about their problem. Again, there are lots of ways. I think that it's not all or nothing. There are lots of, and your Dear Abby letters, again, we can experience that bot not as here's exactly what I should do, thank you, bot, but as like a reader like Bell Hooks. I can read it with skepticism and I can read it with, it can just be something that stimulates my thinking and gets me someplace new, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was really fun. And I'm so glad to know how to do this. Now I want to dream up a more practical application for making my life easier. That's like my impulse, but I don't know. But it was really fun. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you having Gemini read, I did say, hey, Gemini, read through my emails and find emails that I haven't replied to in 5 years that seem relatively unimportant, that sort of thing. And it wasn't great, but it was better than me going through and what I mean? Like, at least give me someplace to start.
Right. Yeah.
Like a bad intern who's not trying very hard because you're not paying them, that kind of thing.
Right. I'll remember this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. So is there anything you need to say? Is there a wrap-up thing that people say at the end of any sessions? I don't know. Just stay tuned for more MYFest.
Varying languages in our
Thank you so much for this, Mark. That was really awesome. I think even the playful part that we all did when it comes to prompting and bot creations was really great, and it sparked a lot of interest. And stay tuned for MYFest sessions. We've got some sessions next week, and we've got also the schedule on the website. So I'm gonna turn off the recording. So if people want to say something outside of the recording, that means that they're welcomed.